If you live in any of the big towns and cities nowadays in New Zealand, you will have noticed the prevalence of the ugly, inhumane, dog box looking things that started popping up on a smaller level before COVID, but which exploded during the fake COVID property boom. One of the big drivers of these dog boxes was obviously the ever insatiable property developers' greed. Now, where there was once one family home that allowed two parents to have a couple of kids that could actually play in the garden, imagine that. Now these developers could squeeze 6 or 8 small, noisy, cramped hot boxes into the same space. What a result for them. Even more profits to be had. Another less talked about driver of the explosion of these dog boxes was the tax breaks that the Ardern government decided to give investors who, unfortunately for them, decided to buy one of these brand new little torture chambers. When the Labour government decided to prevent residential property investors from deducting interest as an expense when paying tax, they left in a few loopholes. And one of those loopholes was new builds. And anyone buying a new build would still be eligible for interest deductibility tax breaks for 20 years. Even if the property was sold within that time, the new owners would benefit. And this made the developers go into an absolute frenzy, and they started buying up any old shack that could be bowled over, and as long as it had the right bit of land to fit a load of these human chicken coops, they were going to buy it. With Adrian Orr's ultra-low interest rates coupled with his disastrous decision to remove LVR restrictions. Now that is a country-destroying decision. And with all the mainstream media FOMO inducing lies, like there are trillions of cashed up Kiwis all heading home at the same time and they're going to buy everything up. Get out and buy now, it's your last chance. The trap was well and truly set for the hapless property investors. And these investors' blind greed could see no wrong. But there was a wrong, a big wrong, because they all paid far too much for their tiny little matchstick houses. Obviously, these investors would not be seen dead in these sweatboxes themselves, but that was irrelevant. They were not going to have to live in them. And all they could see when they looked in the mirror was a Warren Buffett level genius investor. They had beat the system. They were going to dodge tax for 20 years, whilst other less genius investors still had to pay it. But hold on just 1 minute. When the national government got into power, they made the only real benefit to buying one of these rabbit hutches disappear. They bought back interest deductibility for all residential investments, which was a mistake, by the way. As long as accommodation supplements exist, residential real estate investment is not like just any other New Zealand business, but that's a different story. But this reintroduction meant that any new property investors who wanted to join the parasitic landlord class no longer had to buy a new or recently built house or dog box to dodge tax. They could buy any house, old or new, and dodge tax. That 20-year genius tax dodge was no more. Obviously, they still do get the tax dodge, but so does every other investor, which takes the shine well and truly off the housing equivalent of a party line where you can hear absolutely everything that all your neighbours are saying and doing. So talk about having the rug pulled from beneath those earlier investors. Wow. Now there are lots of these naive investors trapped holding onto these tiny postage stamp sized properties, which were very often built during the COVID period at a time where correct building materials were very expensive and near impossible to come by. And what do you think that has done to the quality of a lot of these builds? There has already been many reports about the unbearable heat that is being felt during the summer in these badly designed human battery farms. And the parking situation is nothing short of a disaster for the people unlucky enough to be living in them. And it's also a disaster for any neighbours unlucky enough to be living beside one of these so-called developments. Now listen, the reality is that nobody in their right mind would buy or rent a townhouse if there was a real house alternative for the same price. However, developers, both large and small, absolutely love building these things because they are extremely cheap and easy to throw up compared to building an actual habitable house that a family could happily live in and not just exist in. And if you think that some areas of Auckland have antisocial behaviour now, just imagine what it's going to be like in a few years when these small, cramped, boiling pot dog box communities have neighbours disagreeing over loud music, kids making too much noise playing in the street, barking dogs, and selfish parking. And we all know that it is a very anxious time when new neighbours move in, even if you're in a detached property with a quarter-acre section, because you don't know what type of person you're going to get. You may get a lovely, quiet family who are considerate of others, or you may get party animals who like to drink and smoke all night and play anything that has enough bass to shatter a window. Imagine this anxiety if you're sharing your walls with other people. Even if the wall was made of concrete, which most of them aren't, that would not stop the vibrating bass from absolutely destroying your life. I honestly can't think of anything worse. The funny thing is that New Zealand should not have to entertain even one of these type of properties. The natural New Zealand population is hardly growing at all, and when you take into account the number of Kiwis leaving right now, it is dropping. The only reason more and more people are being squeezed into smaller and smaller spaces is because successive governments keep on letting more and more people into the country, and they're only doing that to fudge the GDP numbers and support the property Ponzi. And it's this warped way of thinking that they call progress. Hopefully one day there's going to be one party out there who catches on to what's going on here. So when you're looking at some of these townhouses that have sprung up all over New Zealand over the last few years, do you think that this is progress? Obviously, these dog boxes would not even be a thing without the government's open door policy. That's a fact. In fact, without this policy, before too long, Kiwis could actually all go back to the quarter-acre dream. And that is not an exaggeration, guys. But in order for that to happen, rich investors and MPs would not get any richer. And with the current set of MPs having stakes in a combined $379 million worth of property, which is what they've declared, but who knows if that is really everything, I cannot see this lot doing anything to change course. They are more than happy for us plebs to live in smaller and smaller spaces while they are living in multi-million-dollar farms. Their policies do not negatively affect them, which is why none of the current neoliberal political parties would go for it. And that is why major fundamental political change is a must in New Zealand. So thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers for that.